Welcome to Barbarian
Welcome,
Banter podcast.
welcome, guys, to the Barbarian Banter podcast.
Mhm.
Our very first episode,
Kind of. Our intro episode.
our intro episode, yeah. Which I've saved as our very first video. Some of you would know that we've been discussing doing this for a while, and then I don't know. I think we just kind of woke up yesterday and we're like, actually,
Mhm.
let's just nail this now. You know.
Let's just do it. Into
Um,
the end zone. No, wait, what that's the wrong one. Into the deep end. Deep end.
into the deep
Yeah,
end.
like in
What the?
like when you learn how to swim,
Oh, yes,
instead of
yes.
going shallow, you just dive into the deep end and hope you don't drown.
Wow, this is our first episode. So obviously our intro episode. It's gonna be a little chaotic and stuff. Like, hey, it's we're a
That's
bunch
us.
of barbarian nerds. Like, what do you expect? But Plague, why don't you introduce your beautiful self? Tell us about you, how you got into DMing, how long you've been DMing for, and how did you get into ttrpgs?
All right. It's been a long road. I am old. I'm ancient comparatively to many little ones. I actually got into D&D because my dad had some D&D books and I got to reading them. And I was a young sprite who couldn't really read. So I was picking out pictures going, "Ooh, I want to be that. Oh, I want to be that." And it was the old school E1 book, like
Yeah.
it, the art was very 70s, right? So it was, yeah, I just was enjoying what I was reading. My sister and I started making characters when we were very young. I think I was like 10 and she was 12. And we started just making characters, and it ended up we kind of branched out to something called mushing. Mushing is like a full text based role play game.
Okay.
So it's on a server. Everybody logs in, and basically you write the text of your what your character's doing, and that's all you write. And then the next person writes what their character's doing and how they interact with you. And then like if there's another character, they will also post. So it's kind of you just do a little paragraph of what your character's doing, and it taught me how to write, and it taught me good sentence structure, how to add in all the senses when you're describing something, when you are like really getting into something, how to make it alive, right? I started DMing when I was 18. My first table was the 5 people that were in my nerd group in high school, and we just started doing some like I wasn't good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was not good. I was like, I also want a character. So we were just kind of like talking as our characters over the table. We never actually fought a beast. We never did anything like that. We were just role playing, and we were role playing going shopping in the markets, and we were role playing like finding a house and hanging out, and how would we decorate the house and what's happening. So it was very much a Real Housewives of Dungeons and Dragons type feeling.
Uh,
Um,
can we turn that into a show? Real Housewives of Dungeons and Dragons?
that would be pretty cool.
We're here, HBO and stuff. Real Housewives of Dungeons and Dragons. Let's go.
Yeah. To be fair, that would literally be one person thinking of how they're going to increase their character and another person doing voices in the other room so that they can voice their NPCs that they're right. So, or it would be like one person painting like Warhammer 40K like things, and someone else is over like creating the most fields. And so, yeah, I was not good. And then I kept kind of doing that type of DMing for a while.
Mhm.
And then when I went to Toronto, I lived in Toronto for about 2 years, and I went to a gaming store in Toronto, and I was like, I really wanted DM. Oh, that was my mom texting me. I really wanted DM. And um, the guy, he looked at me and he was like, "Do you know anything about Dungeons and Dragons?" And I was like, "Not really. Like I know my dad has the books, but not
Mhm.
really, right?" And he was like, "Okay, no problem." And he took out, at that time it was like 3.5, 5 hadn't come out yet. He opened the books and he was showing me how how to build the stat blocks and everything like that. And then I got really into it. I joined a table as a player so I could see how it worked. I think it's pivotal for a DM to start as a player, even if it's like
Sent.
two or three games, to see how as a DM you should run, how to what you like in DMing, kind of like join a couple tables and figure out how you want your DM style to be, and that's kind of for like 2 years. That's kind of what I was doing as I was learning. And then I moved back to old Boondock, like Hicksville, and got eventually got my hands on the 5e books. And then I was reading them and I was like, oh my God, they're so amazing. And then I walked into the gaming store that is literally like a block away from me right now. And the guy looked at me, looked to my feet, looked up because I had asked him, is there a table that needs a DM? And he's like, honey, you can just get your boyfriend to come in and tell me. And I was like, no, I don't have, first off, I don't have a boyfriend. Secondly, like me. And he's like, vaginas don't play Dungeons and Dragons. You can leave. And I'm like,
Wait, vaginas don't play Dungeons and Dragons?
yeah, he literally, instead of saying female, which is the equivalent of like incel type talk,
Mm.
like the females can't do it, he flat out was like, you're a vagina, you can't do it, get out of here. And I'm like, I am never buying anything from you. Like I think I had bought a set of dice from him before, and he was
Mm.
really nice. And then when I asked, he was awful. And I was like, you're a dweeb. Like, you
You can't
suck.
believe you said dweeb.
Yeah, I just kind of like, I was like, you suck. And then I walked away. Um, and then I found another place that I can buy Dungeons and Dragons books that isn't him. And I was like, now I don't have to get anything from him. Because he used to be the only person in like a 20-mile radius that sold Dungeons and Dragons, anything. And then another store opened up in the mall that,
And you're like, see you later,
yeah,
alligator.
yeah,
I'm
that was
away.
all about games, like any board games, ttrpgs. Like they have a wall of books that they are thick steel shelves because it's like full walls of books. And I was able to pick up a few books and then I was reading it. And then my sister and I were kind of doing like an over the phone
Mhm.
D&D, and she was the DM. And then she was getting really not well, so ended up I started DMing and she was just enjoying playing her character. Um, and then my sister passed away, and I stopped playing Dungeons and Dragons completely because it just reminded me too much of her.
Mm.
Um, and I, was scrolling TikTok one day and I saw the Eldritch Podblast, which shout out to them. They're
Shout out to the
amazing.
Outjets Pop Blast. If you
Like,
see this in a video format,
yes.
the entity is
Um,
in this podcast, guys.
Yes. So Jack and Margaret are amazing. They are wonderful people, and their takes, I really, really understood their takes. I was starting also to get very sick in the last few years. And so now I physically can't work normal jobs. I have to have like a very nice chair if I'm sitting, and I can't stand for too long. I won't get into illnesses because that's no issue. But I was like, I joined their Discord, and, I reached out and I was like, I'm a DM and I have an idea for a game, and I had like 6 applicants in like 20 minutes. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And 4 of them worked out. 5 of them worked out. And then I had my story already mostly like plot points and things all out. And then I had 2 streamer friends that I know also joined. So I have now a party of 7 that I've been DMing, and they seem to love the way I DM. So I think it took a really long time, but I got there. So um, I'm just going to shout out everything. Makatis is on Twitch, and he's on TikTok. I am Playgroot. You can find me on TikTok, Twitch, and Instagram as Playgroot, but YouTube is Playgroot Official because I stole my own name with a different email address, which I can't change. So it pissed me off. So I'm Playgroot Official. Uh, yeah. Now, Makadis, tell us how you got into Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, look, I've always been a nerd. I've always been a self-professed nerd. Behind me are rows and rows of books that vary from like hardcore fantasy to like Jane Austen.
I love
Okay,
Jane
like
Austen.
it's just, and I remember growing up and reading about this game that was the game of Satan, and you could summon demons and witches and elves, and these creatures would come to life. And if this was in your house, they were going to, and these embodiments were going to come into your house. And I was like, sounds like something that I want to be a part of. Okay, this is a time before I knew that I was gay and stuff, and I was just
Mhm,
like, hey, and I loved all things magical and high fantasy. Um, and then I read about D&D,
mhm.
and I just never had anyone to play with because I was always kind of a loner. And so I'd create worlds and stuff in my head, right? And
Mhm.
then I always wanted to play and moved to my current location, where I now live with my husband, who has to listen to me talk about D&D all the time. And actually met a friend at a job at my an old job, and he said, we've actually got a D&D game if you'd like to participate. And I was like, hell yeah, like it's around the corner, let's do this. um I was not a good player.
Were you a
Okay.
metagamer?
No, I was just really disruptive. Okay.
Oh,
I got told off a lot. My friend, we're still friends to this day.
yeah.
And he has said, look, because he doesn't lose patience, right? He said, you have nearly made me lose it several times. Just because my personality was a bit much. Obviously, Makardis has tamed it down a little bit.
Have
And
you
so I kind of
though? Have you though?
like I try. And it kind of went from there, and then I met another DM who's been playing ttrpgs. I tell everyone since the 60s. Turns out D&D didn't come out until 1974, as I was
Mm.
scored in my stream the other day. I was like, I'm sure my DM has been playing it longer. So I met him on an off chance. I joined a local D&D group and went to a session, and I got scared of him the first session because he said to me, I'm the DM, what I say goes. And I was like, yes, sir, no, sir. How high would you like me to jump?
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Steve. I love and appreciate you. So to this day, I still play with Steve on Wednesdays and Sundays. And I've been playing with Steve for about 3 or 4 years. And it's been a journey. It has been this massive journey that is never ending. I have been through so many characters. Twice was because I killed the entire team. Learning curve, guys. D&D is all about learning, okay? Don't throw magical scrolls into a fire. And when you
No.
know that you're surrounded by spiders or things in a forest that can kill you, don't try and do things like scout for herbs and stuff because you will die.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
much so. Hmm.
And
Especially
then,
spiders.
yeah, which I had to learn the hard way, right? I had no background in D&D. So I play with Steve 3 times a week.
Hmm.
And I've learned to fall in love with spellcasters. In older editions, I tend to play illusionists because it's just right up my alley. The ability to manipulate what you think you see. I've tried fighters. I've tried rogues. I've actually tried every class except for monk. Not a fan of rogues, but I play them really, really well. It's because rogues and older editions, as Plague would know, you have to be very particular about how you go about and you do things.
Hmm.
And so that was me. I bought a couple of books, bought a DM guide, have still to this day not read it. It just sits there. And yeah, I was actually watching the Eldritch Podblast. I found them on TikTok, jumped into the community, and it's just been all go. And I was like, look, I really want to DM. I have stories and stuff in my mind that I really need to get out. But I want to watch other people play my stories and my ideas. And then I actually created a one shot and no one wanted to play. And I was like, okay, that's cool. We're going to try again. Tried again. I now have, I had 6, 7 players. I now have 6. First time DM. Apparently that's not recommended, but it's cool. We can wing this. I feel like winging it is like my life motto at this point.
Yeah, for first time DM, 4. Like 4 people.
We just
Any
we we just got add-ons. Like people just started, and I was like, yeah, of course, come fit in, because I
Mhm,
think the thing I love about D&D is the environment is extremely inclusive,
mhm,
and it's a world where you can live your best version of another version of yourself.
mhm.
So being an elf who is great at, yeah, look, the good old cliche being Legolas. Right? If you ever wanted to be an archer, and you can play Legolas. In my
Yeah.
streams, we turn people and their favorite characters into D&D. And through Mags and Jack's stream, I learned how to be a DM. I learned how to create stories and worlds, and they have like challenges where you submit homebrew things, and I
Mhm.
submit things, and every week I submit something, Megs cries without fail. Without fail. I love you, Megs. I'm so sorry. Yeah, and it's just really wholesome. The group is amazing. There's always really good advice in there. There's always people talking in their stuff.
Always.
And yeah, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be a DM. And I actually submitted it to the Pod Blast to be like, what do you guys think?
Mhm.
And they loved it. Chat loved it. And I was like, cool. And then I started to think a week later with one half page of prep. The
Mhm.
session went for 4 hours. And I told my players after, guess how much prep I'd done? And they were like, there is no way you prepped just that. I'm like, you'll be surprised.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm still a very, very new DM. I'm sure as we continue this podcast and these chats and stuff, we will learn a lot of things. I've got a lot to learn. I have a lot to teach as well. I tend to excel
Mhm.
more in the role play side. And obviously, Plague, you've been a DM since like I was born, nearly since I was born, and you've been playing D&D for about that long, actually.
31 years.
Yeah, see, and you've been playing since you've actually been playing since before I was born. So like, there's a wealth of knowledge between both of us. And
Mhm.
in this podcast, we're going to go over things like that. Everything from like what base stats are to magical items and weird situations and how to get your players and stuff more involved.
Mhm.
Um, like how do I make my players take the bait?
Yeah.
All things that the amazing Plague probably do quite naturally, whereas I kind of have to force the situation and tell my players, if you don't go down here, you will die. I don't, by the way. Aspiring DMs don't do that.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, that's us. That's
Mhm.
Barbarian Banter. This is going to be a long ride, a long journey,
Mhm.
and I'm actually really fucking excited. Are we allowed to swear on our podcast?
I think one F word is okay.
Cool.
That's in the general. That's PG-13, one F word.
Yeah, cool, awesome.
I won't
Um,
swear.
I will try not to. But I mean, yeah, I've that's it from my end. And this is a really good way to start our podcast. If
Mhm.
you wanted to wrap us up, Plague.
All right. So, we'll be posting one a week, one podcast a week. We don't know how long it will be. Makatis and I talk, and we're chaotic, and we go everywhere. So we may start with a topic, and we might end up in Rome. It might
When in
happen.
Rome.
When in Rome, do what the Romans do, right? So, it's definitely with Makatis having the role play aspect. Me as a DM, I take voice classes, so like the voice inflections and things, and how I edit my voice through my voice box is also can be helpful. So I'm willing to share that information. But yeah, so Barbarian Banter is literally, we're going to stick mostly to 5e. We're not necessarily going to go back to 3.5 or 1 because not many people play them anymore, even
Yes.
though they're wonderful in their own ways. 5 struggles sometimes. Wizards of the Coast has a not great reputation when it comes to consistency in their writing. So, to be fair, there's no wrong way to play D&D. We're just giving you our opinions and our life experience to talk about D&D. So, we'd love you to come along on the journey, and we will see you next week with
Yeah.
our first podcast.
Thanks for joining, guys. Have a
Wonderful to hear
good
from you.
day, night, morning, evening. Good. Yeah.
Afternoon, week, month, year.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.